Good morning, everybody. We may have other people join us, but I wanted to get started. I'd like to welcome you to this Iowa Sales Tax Town Hall. We're looking for and discussing Iowa sales tax exemption to fight hunger in the state of Iowa. If you have any questions throughout our talk, as we have our guest speakers talk a little bit, please place them in the chat and we'll address all your questions and maybe have some time for FAQ at the end. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Linda Gorko, the Iowa Food Bank Association Executive Director. We also have with us talk a little bit is Representative Sandy Salmon. She represents House District 63. She served Iowa in the House of Representatives since 2013. And has co-sponsored House File 579 for sales tax exemption for food banks and pantries in the state of Iowa. We also are blessed to have Representative Timmy Brown Powers, and she also co-sponsored the bill, House File 579, and she represents House District 61. She served in Iowa's House since 2015 and is a representative for House District 61 again. And then we have Barb Prather, who I'd like to introduce, and she will continue on with us. And Barb Prather is a chairperson for the Iowa Food Bank Association. And she is the executive director of the Northeast Iowa Food Bank in Northeast Iowa. She's serving 16 counties in that area with the food bank. So I'd like to turn it over to Barb.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you everyone for attending today. On behalf of the Northeast Iowa Food Bank and the Iowa Food Bank Association, we can't thank all of you enough for being interested in this topic and helping us to achieve sales tax exemption for food banks and pantries in the state of Iowa. The food bank can't do what they do without community partners. And whether that's a funding organization, whether it's a food donor, whether it's a volunteer, it doesn't matter. All of us are important. All of you are important into helping us achieve our mission of providing food and grocery products for nonprofit organizations and individuals in Northeast Iowa while offering hunger education to the community and those in need. Today, to say the least, the past year has probably been one of the most taxing and trying for food banks and food pantries across the state. And what I'm very appreciative of is all of the support that we've gotten across the state for the work that we do and how we do it. One of the things, though, that is missing for us is the fact that we are not sales tax exempt. While we're property tax exempt, federal and state tax exempt, we are not sales tax exempt. And we'll get into that more in a little bit. And that's really the purpose of this webinar, is to educate all of you more on that and how you can help us achieve that. But also just to give you a quick update on the food bank's role in the community this past year and how we have helped many people through our network of nonprofit organizations that we serve, but also the many programs that we have. And it takes all of us working together to do that. And so being here and being able to share and say thank you means a lot to me. Just as on a high level, in the past year, the food bank was able to provide in calendar year 20 almost 10 million meals, which is almost 12 million pounds of food. That's triple of what we were distributing prior to moving into this facility in 2013. We knew we set our goals high and our bars high, but we wanted to make sure that people in Northeast Iowa had access to food in the last year. And while we can only do what we can do, it takes all of us working together to make sure that happens. But the fact that that much food was distributed through our network is simply amazing. And thank you to everybody on this call who helped to make that possible. One of the partnerships, if you've ever heard me speak, partnerships are really important to the food bank and what we do. And one of the partnerships that has been enhanced this past year is with state government. The state saw a need to help us. And through the Feeding Iowans Task Force made available not only food, but funds and access to volunteers that helped us enable us to do the work. The funding that we received through the state all came from Federal CARES Act dollars. It wasn't state dollars. The food bank currently is not funded with state funding. And that's why, to me, sales tax exemption is so important to us, is because it's just a small way that can help us provide 1 million more meals nationally, or 1 million more meals statewide to the people that we serve. And it's just a small way that the state of Iowa can recognize the work the food banks have done. So that is why this is really, really important. And with that, I'm honored today to welcome Representative Sandy Salmon from Waverly and Representative Timmy Brown Powers from Waterloo. Timmy also serves on the board of directors of the Northeast Iowa Food Bank, and we thank her for her time with that. And both have been extremely helpful with this legislation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Sandy Salmon to share her thoughts on how you can help us get this passed, and other thoughts about food insecurity and hunger in Iowa in general, and how she can help us continue the fight. So Sandy, it's yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just fine.
Okay, all right, because my screen disappeared and so I can't see anybody. But thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you guys do. The outreach to a lot of needy families. And I know you have outreach up into my area, my district, because there's several outlets there and they depend on the food bank, the big one in Waterloo. So again, I appreciate everything you guys do. And I know there's a lot of things that go on that maybe all of us don't know about, but thank you for doing it. I am working on this issue here in the legislature. I've got a lot of people interested in seeing this happen here. As you know, Representative Brown Powers has signed on to this bill. We've got a good mix of Republicans and Democrats signed on to this bill. And so there's definite interest. I've talked to Representative Gary Moore, who's from Davenport or Bettendorf, and he is the appropriations chair. And he was very supportive in the past and is still supportive of this effort. And in his area, there is a major food bank. So, he's located close to one. And then also I've spoken to Representative Hine, and he's on the Ways and Means Committee, and also Representative Fry, and he is the chair for the H&HS Budget Subcommittee. So those three people are very key players in getting this passed through the House. And so far, everybody's listened with open ears and everything, but they're waiting for the budget targets to get set. And that's going to be very key to getting this done, is what the budget targets are going to be. We had the REC, the Revenue Estimating Conference, met this past Friday, and they've given us the figures for what the budget revenue is going to be for the fiscal year 22. And so we're going to be meeting to take a look at that and breaking that down into what the targets for the different areas are going to be. And then that's where these conversations will take place in earnest. So those conversations will be coming up today and through this week. So I am hopeful of being able to get, get it included in our conversations. I know you've probably seen that the House File 579 hasn't been assigned to subcommittee and hasn't moved forward, but that doesn't mean that nothing will be done, because I know that they're waiting until they know what the budget's going to do before they move on anything. So that's kind of where things are at right now. So these conversations will be taking place here today and tomorrow and the next day. So I'm going to be talking to these chairs about getting this included. So you may go ahead and pray and hope that it goes well. But I have also talked to the Senate, and as you probably remember, last year, the House, it was the Senate, the House passed it, but the Senate was the one that didn't take it. So I have talked to the president of the Senate over there, and he wants to make an appropriation. Of course, that means it's only 1 year. It would only be in effect for 1 year. It wouldn't be ongoing. If we have the sales tax exemption, that's going to be ongoing. So it doesn't mean that that's the final word on it from the Senate, but that's what I got from them as far as I got. So it'll probably be up to the House to push it along. So that's what I know about it for now, and we will just we'll just keep after it. Having been up here for a number of years, I know that you just have to keep after things until you finally get it done. And so if we can treat this like we're in it for the long haul, I think it will help us. So that's what I know for now, and definitely there will be some conversations about this in the very near future. So if you guys got any questions or any thoughts, I'd be happy to try to answer the best I could.
Well, if people have questions, just put them in the chat and we'll get them at the end after Representative Brown Powers speaks, and then we can have both of you answer them. So Representative Brown Powers.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. So Sandy kind of covered the basics for us. And so just to highlight a couple of things, just so people know, there's a fiscal note on this, but the fiscal note is only a $250,000 fiscal note with a return of over 1 million meals fed to Iowans, and that's across Iowa. So that's every single House member and Senate district. So this is such a good bipartisan bill because it honestly will affect every single person down there in their constituency. So it's a small amount. And that fiscal note, let me just clarify for everybody, that fiscal note it's not going to cost, so it's not a budget item coming out of the budget of 250,000. That is just a projected number of the 250,000 that won't be coming into the budget. So, which is a better thing, because then Representative Moore really doesn't have to find a line item to budget that. We just need to know from an overall budget standpoint that that's a potential number not coming in, and that number could kind of fluctuate, but we know that the turnaround would be over 1 million meals in the state of Iowa. So that's kind of a big deal. And I think the other thing to remember, that though it has not been assigned, like Sandy said, in Ways and Means yet, I talked to Representative Hines on Thursday, and I will talk to him again tomorrow. I talk to him every time we have Ways and Means, just asking for a committee. But remember that though April 2nd is the second funnel, these bills are all funnel proof. So Ways and Means does not have to worry about not making it through funnel. So that's one of the things that is not a concern. So don't panic, because right now, this week and next week, we'll be pushing for funnel bills. And so Ways and Means, again, takes kind of the back seat on that. And last year, when we did get it in, we had put it in kind of an omnibus bill through Ways and Means, and I could foresee that happening again. And it was the Senate that actually took it out. So we really need to be talking to all of our senators because it affects every Senate seat. We need to talk to the Ways and Means Committee in the House, particularly our leadership, and I would say Matt Winchell and Representative Pat Grassley, making sure all those folks are aware that this is an important bill, just so that we can kind of push this forward. We also know that the governor and her staff are supportive. Barb has worked with them on special committees. They have visited the Northeast Iowa site, so they are engaged, they are aware. And so I think that's on our side going forward. And I think too that, when we look at the overall picture, Barb and her staff and all the food banks and all the pantries across Iowa have really stepped up during this COVID time. And so this really is a feather in everybody's cap at the Capitol if they would push this forward. And I think, sometimes they all may need reminders of what important, the important priorities are. And this is definitely one that's important. And but I don't want anyone to get discouraged. And like Sandy said, REC just met on Friday, but this is really low hanging fruit. $250,000, folks, is a lot to you and me and our budgets, and a lot to the folks that need our services. But from a budget standpoint down at the Capitol, that is not. So it's a low amount of funding coming into the state with a high return for Iowans. And I think we want to focus our message around that and just reminding that all the senators and all the House representatives that they have constituents that will benefit in every and I'm not so concerned about the House. When I brought it up in Ways and Means Thursday, everybody at the table was nodding their head. Yes, this is important, and very bipartisan. And last year we passed that, on, it was 98-0, I think. So it's a very good bill, very good support in the House. I think right now our biggest barrier, to be quite honest, is Representative Hine is holding back to see what the Senate is thinking or doing. And I'm encouraging him to be the leader on this again, like we were last year. And then we just kind of focus on the Senate and getting them to understand the importance of it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Representative Brown Powers and Representative Salmon. We have a couple questions in the chat if others have questions, if they want to put them up. Jared, would you share those questions with our speakers, please?
Yeah, Representative Brown Powers, I know you just kind of touched on it, but one question was, why is there resistance on this? Maybe you can touch on that a little bit more, and what people can do to create less resistance maybe as well.
Yeah, so, I think initially people were looking at this like, is this opening a door that's going to want all nonprofits to jump in board or other folks to jump on board to get tax write-offs? And I don't think that's the concern at this point anymore. In the past, they have done different bills that would do one-time funding. And I think, Barb, I don't know, was it 10 years ago probably that they did a one-time? So there are still legislators that think that that fixes the problem. And we've kind of tried in the last several years to steer away from that, to really educate folks that if we could just provide this tax-free for our food banks, it would open up a lot of doors for the food banks and the pantries, and the food banks. We'd be able to help the pantries even more. So the pullback, I think, really is back to us educating all of the senators and all of the House members that this is going to help people in your district, many people in your district. This isn't an isolated thing that we're helping. Sometimes down at the Capitol, we'll get like we're helping a business in one town. This isn't. This is Iowa-wide. And so I'm hoping that with the education process, we can really get that accomplished. Cindy Peterson and her husband are lobbying down there. They are doing a good job at keeping everybody in the loop and connecting all those partners down there this year as well.
Representative
Representative-
Salmon, do you have anything to add on that?
What I see is there's a lot of demands on the budget, and and they don't know, they didn't know what the REC estimate was going to be. If it's lower than what the December is, then we have to build our budget on the lower one. We have to build it on, if the March one was lower, we'd have to build it on the March one. So they always wait to see what that's going to be before they commit, because this obviously is going to have a budget impact, and there are always so many requests that come in, and they just have to weigh them and see, you know, what people want the most and where the most need is. And it's not an easy job, because there's always needs that go unfilled. You have to just do the best you can to fill the most urgent needs possible, to fill the most needs you can. And it's just pretty much that simple. It's that, you know, making budget decisions, and they're not always easy. So.
The next question is maybe for Barb or Linda. Can you talk about how much sales tax is generated from food banks and what maybe can be done with that money?
I think what we discussed before is we're looking at that fiscal note of, you know, $200,000. That's an approximate. One, you know, depending on what's happened, we just pulled it from, I think they believe they pulled it from last year. But that is basically what the impact would be. And that would provide 1 million meals across the state of Iowa through the food banks across the state. This past year, all the food banks across the state distributed more than 50 million meals because of the big increase. The year before, we had 33 million meals that all the food banks provided to the community. But the sales tax impact would be about $250,000 from the food banks.
Representative Brown Powers, are there any specific arguments? I know you talked about the Senate president that people could maybe bring up to him, and kind of some specific talking points that when they're contacting representatives and senators, what they might be able to talk about?
You know, I think one of the good things, just to remind them that it passed last year, very bipartisan in the House, and it again has bipartisan support in the House this year. And then just really reminding them that this is a low amount of money coming into the state with a high return of feeding Iowans. And I think, you know, our March REC numbers were actually very good. So that is positive for us. And so that should kind of help relieve some of the senators' concerns. But I would really talk about, and as you reach out to certain senators, look in those districts. So and kind of give them an idea of how many people that would be helping in their area. You know, when you're looking at local senators here, Senator Doster, Senator Giddens, those numbers are going to be different from our senators in Western Iowa, but we're still helping those senators. So kind of try to be specific to the area, because I think that is very helpful. A chain letter or a drafted letter that comes out to all of us that says the same thing, except for you added our name in, is not really that effective. Most of us look to see if it came from our district, or if it is talking about something specific in our district. So I think, especially with the food bank, if we can personalize this for everyone, so they understand the numbers within their own district, and the folks that this is going to be helping, I think that would go a long ways.
I think that kind of wraps up our questions, Barb, unless you have anything last points to say, and kind of maybe how people can help out going forward.
Representative Salmon, did you have any other closing comments you wanted to make?
What Representative Brown Powers said is very correct. As far as the pitch to make to senators and so forth. I guess I would add this at the risk of sounding partisan, but my guess is your Democratic senators will not be as hard to convince as maybe your Republican senators will, just to be very frank. So I would focus my firepower on the Republican senators there, just to be very honest with you about that. So that's why I went to Senator Chapman. He's the president of the Senate, and I kind of know him a little bit, how he thinks. And so I thought, well, I'll just take one of the toughest nuts and try to talk to him about it. And, he didn't shut it down, So I think there's an open door there. And so you've got Senator Johnson there, Barb, close to our area. Some of the, look and see some of these Senate districts that the food banks, some of the Republican Senate districts that the food banks serve. And I'm sure they serve practically all of them. But I would hone in on those Republican senators. Senator Carlin is supportive, but I would hone in on those folks. So if that is helpful.
Thank you, Sandy. That's a great, you brought up great points, both of you. So yes, if anybody needs who their senator or representative is, you can reach out and we can get you connected with them. We also have talking points. I wrote an op-ed in the Courier that'll go out to the weeklies in the coming week that has the talking points in them as well, and you can share that document. But yes, as much as we can localize this, and share about what you're doing in your community, and what we're doing together, not only with the Northeast Iowa Food Bank or throughout the state, will make a bigger impact in the story of the people that you serve. It's no secret that last year there were a lot of people that showed up at the doors of food banks and food pantries that had never seen it before, because they'd never needed it before. And that's when the food bank comes to play, and the food pantries come to play, is when when people are in need of it. And so anything that we can do to help that, or provide information to any of you to help us advocate, to make a difference and share stories, we are happy to do that. There was one more question in the chat about food banks. If we were granted sales tax exemption, where could this amount of money be generated from? Other sources? The food bank does what it does because of the generosity of the community, and we continue to raise the money. If we go out and buy something that costs $10,000, we're paying 7% of sales tax. So we need to generate another $700 in funding for that on top of the $10,000 we need to provide. And so it will help us use that money to provide more food versus paying, say, sales tax. And so if we aren't granted sales tax, as we haven't been in the past, we will continue to raise the money to do that. With that, does anybody have any questions? Again, it's House Bill 579 or House File 579 and Senate File 306. Those are the two bills that are out there. Does anybody else have any further questions? Please feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer anything and help help us get this passed. Yes, Todd, the Senate is our target. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Linda, did you want to close with anything?
No, just thank you for everybody for your time. And just a reminder is that feeding and nourishing Iowans is a part of helping them become active Iowans, and only makes our state stronger. So we appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.